All right, family. Peace, greetings. Welcome to another edition of Baaba TV Every Time Fire. I just want to do this sidebar before we bring our esteemed elder on. Our brother Umar Johnson, Dr. Umar Johnson, has a new book out, The Art of War, The Black Parent Advocate, The Art of War for Dealing with Public and Charter Schools. And as we know, our brother also is coming right along with the FDMG Academy, which I totally support. Send all donations to FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 9634, Wilmington, Delaware 19809. Cash App is cash me / $FDMG School. PayPal me FDMG Academy. And you can get the rest of the information by going on the Good Brothers Instagram or Facebook. And with that being said, family, I would like to present back on Baaba TV, hailing from the Washington, another soldier, elder Baaba of mine, hailing from the Washington, D.C., DMV area. You know, this was my Dr. Clark. I didn't know nothing about Dr. Clark. This elder introduced me to Dr. Clark, introduced me to Dr. Ben. When I say introduced, the information. I never met them, but the information. Along with him and Rafu, Infudiji, Baba Heru, I learned and met these individuals through this elder right here. My brother, big brother and elder, Brother Tehuti, and I'm so thankful that he gave me a little bit of his time to get on little old Baaba TV and share some of his wisdom that he always has to bring to our people. Brother Tehuti, I'm done running my mouth, sir.
Baaba TV, Every Time Fire. Greetings, my brother. Thank you very much for inviting me to share a few moments again with you and your worldwide community. It's always a pleasure to do that, to be with you. These are some strange times that we're living in. And, like, hey, at my age, I look back at history and know that it was 1918, 1919, 1920 was the last time they had a worldwide pandemic. They called it a Spanish flu. I think they gave Spain a bad name by blaming it on them, like Trump trying to blame China, calling this a China flu. But this is a worldwide pandemic of a virus that's airborne. And it is killing people all over the globe. It's killing people all over. In fact, just on today's news here in the DMV, the District, Maryland, and Virginia, they announced that the death toll is up over 10,000, which is, again, tragic, because a number of the higher percentage of that 10,000 are Black people and a lot of Hispanic people, like old people. And we're the most vulnerable to the nature of this disease. And I've just told everyone I know, I'm telling them to be safe, wear a mask. If you don't have to go out, don't go out. As an example, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. When they go to the grocery store, the Giant opens at 6. And from 6 to 7 are the hours for senior citizens. So I get up, get out, get in, and get out early before the store, fills up with people. Shop early, that kind of thing. But this is bad news. A number of people in several organizations I belong to have passed away. We've had people in the Paul Laurence Dunbar complex where I live pass away. And so I know that this is real. I've seen on some websites or on Facebook, or there are some young folk who don't believe it. I know that those young people who are catching the disease, the impact is not as severe with the younger generations as it is with us older people. So, and everything that everyone has told me about the disease, I've only talked to one. I only know one person that had it and survived it, and his description of the pain and the discomfort that you go through once you get the disease is something that I definitely don't want to experience. But it definitely has kind of shut down America in a way. Again, I'm happy to see young folk right away use this new technology to FaceTime and Facebooking, like all kind of technology, even this Zoom, WebEx, and this, I forgot the name again of the service you're using, but there are many outlets that allows us to continue to communicate, to continue to share information. And I think that is very important. So whether you're in London, Paris, in Kingston, Jamaica, wherever one might be, through outlets like you who have developed, like I said, a worldwide community of followers, like programs like this one are being shared through to a worldwide community. And again, I'm just so proud of you. From the time, 20 plus years ago, like when we first met, the quiet young man who would come in the store and look around at books and what have you. You weren't very talkative, but you were very observant. And one of your first businesses when you used to do those are what I call conscious tapes, where you would do your mixture of music and lectures or speeches, Malcolm or what's the name? Khalid Muhammad, Steve Coakley. I mean, you took John Henry Clark and other people who had made some very pertinent statements in their lectures or their speeches. And you had a way of mixing music with what they were saying. I like what you did with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and how you backdrop music over what he was saying, this whole kind of thing. I thought you pioneered that in terms of my awareness of it. And I saw other people later on, try to catch up with you, but you were selling your music, selling your messages and what have you. You've always, you were a conscious brother then. And even back, 10 to 15 years ago, when you started out with somebody else doing the interviewing, like folks from the community, celebrities, intellectuals, scholars, what have you. Again, you've been pioneering this and not staying out in front, making sure that there are outlets, whatever the medium, there are outlets where very important information from within our community is being broadcast out to our people. So I salute you for that. I'm very proud of you, having known you as a young man, to see how you've matured and how you've changed or adapted your gifts to new technology, and you're still moving forward. So a shout out to you. A shout out. You was telling me about your young brother, AD.
Yes, sir.
Who did a program earlier. You two was, again, having known both of you when you were younger and seeing how you've matured and where both of you have arrived today. I'm just proud that in any way that I've been able to inspire you or give you a hint or something. I know that the seeds from my presentations to you took root, and I'm proud of that. So I see a little bit of me in you. I see a little bit of me in what you're doing. So I'm really proud about that. Hey, but man, these times are just something I never would have imagined that like a worldwide pandemic, this COVID-19. I never would have imagined having to experience just the whole social impact of that virus and how it's impacting people across the globe. And at the same time, I mean, it's a double whammy. I never imagined there would ever be a president of the United States like the Trump that's down the street at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, there's never been a character like he in the White House as such. And here, after even having lost the election, this boy is really trying to pull off a strong arm coup to overturn the election and take the presidency away from Joe Biden. And the idea that there would be so many people collaborating with him and allowing him to get away with that kind of thing is quite a surprise to me also. But if the, like American ethics, I've always classified it. American ethics are what I call situational ethics. It depends on what the situation is in terms of what ethics they are put in play. So going back to our native brothers of this continent, when they first ran into this man when he came over here, there were a couple of things they said about him. And one of them that still stands very true to this day is that this man speaks with a forked tongue. He says one thing and he does something else. What he tells you is not what he means when he tells you that. He's a gamer or he's a con man. They talk about the legendary P.T. Barnum, who made the statement that there's a sucker born every minute. And that used to be Donald Trump's anthem. That's why he ripped off so many people in New York City with all of his games and things, his apartment complexes, when he was trying to bar us from not being able to rent from the Trump properties. He set up what do they call it, a Trump University. He was ordering some cheap beef from somewhere and selling them as high price, Trump steaks. I mean, this guy has been a con man his whole adult life. And here a con man was able to fool enough white Americans and Republicans that they elected him president. And just the idea, I mean, if the numbers are true, that 72 to 74 million people voted for this guy. And understanding that he's a racist and that if he has 74 million followers, that means that racism in America has not subsided, that there are crazy people out there that want to bring out their weapons and help him pull a coup to try to stay in office. So what's going to happen over these next few weeks? It's going to be very, very, very interesting. I'm telling all of my friends to be prepared. Get your weapons oiled up, get everything ready. Because if these folks, especially here in D.C., if they're going to pull a coup off, they're going to have to come to the nation's capital to keep this guy installed. So, hey, all of my friends here, especially those who are veterans of the Vietnam War, a lot of the older brothers, we are well armed and know how to use our weapons. So if we have to protect ourselves, we will. But with the fact that Biden is getting ready to put a brother in as the, Secretary of Defense in charge of the military, I don't think these civilians quite understand that if there's any type of skirmishing that goes on, there is a provision where the U.S. Army or the U.S. military can come in and put down a social uprising. If you remember the story of the Tulsa Riots of 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, remember it was the United States Army flying airplanes that came in and was dropping bombs on the black community when the brothers was fighting back against the white men who attacked them in their part of town. The intersections of Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. And it's very easy to remember Greenwood, Archer, and Pine because of one of my favorite groups from the late 70s or the 70s and 80s. They were called the Gap Band. And that GAP, that's what those initials stand for, Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. And they adopted that name in order to let it be known that that was the section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, that the white folks tried to burn down because they were jealous of the success and the richness of the black folks in that part of town. It was called Black Wall Street because of throughout the whole South, of cities and towns, that was the most successful financial district of all black people that ever existed in this country. And again, the jealousies of the poor whites in that area, they were so jealous that they looked for an excuse, and they use the same, like the same old excuse they'll come up with, the one that seems that white folks are more inclined to want to believe. Some black man did something to some white girl, whether they were on the elevator together, and when the elevator door opened up, the white girl got scared and said, "This man, he attacked me in here," that kind of stuff. And there have been thousands of black men lynched in this country behind the excuse that some black man did something negative to a white person, primarily a white woman, a white female. And using that as the excuse, they just lynched, killed. I mean, those that were the strange fruit hanging from trees, those that, were just beaten and burned, battered and burned, thrown in rivers. I mean, the tragedy of the hatred that a segment of the American population has always had toward black folks here is criminal. I know last summer, I think Doc Rivers said something, the basketball coach, the former coach of the Los Angeles Clippers. He's now with, I think, the Philadelphia 76ers. But he made a statement that, y'all love our culture, but you don't like us. Yes, Well, again, what they don't like is the fact, what a lot of white folks know, when Captain John Smith and the crew landed down off the river down in Virginia in 1607 to start their colony, that whole Tidewater area was tree lined, with trees everywhere when they started their first settlement. Well, if like most of the land that was cleared of trees, like black men in captivity cleared the land in order for there to be the great big farm so that they could plant the cotton, plant the tobacco and all the other stuff that they made, like millions of dollars off of our free labor. When you get to the foundation, who actually built the foundation, the structure that the colonists had in place when they rebelled against the British government in 1776, that war that lasted really from 1770 to about 1783, where most of the grunt work was done by black men and women in captivity, all right, working. I hate using the term, like slavery. We were captives. We were captured and brought and put in an institution as such. But the mindset, we were captives. These people were so mean, even when we found a way to escape and run away from the captivity, the United States Congress collaborated with the slave owners when they passed the Fugitive Slave Act. And as young folk today in this country, as part of their protest about the conditions, the recent murders of the young men, starting with Trayvon Martin, through to Michael Brown in outside of St. Louis, Missouri. Eric, it's just a bunch of them. I can't name them all. But from this era of murder, official under the cover of officialdom, these policemen who are still murdering black people. The root of that goes back to them creating the vigilante forces under the Fugitive Slave Act that had free will to go bring back runaway, black people who had escaped from captivity and take them back to sell them back to or take them back to their masters, or in many cases, they kidnapped folks and just took them deep in the South, Mississippi and Louisiana. And these were just black folks. They stole off the streets of Philadelphia, New York City, and as far north as Boston. They were kidnapping people and just taking them back down south and just selling them back into captivity as such. So this thing has been going on a long time in this country. And the police have always, the collaboration between the cops and the courts, like the police officer's word is supposed to be sacred, and there's probably, I would say, at least 70% of black men will tell you the lyingest group of people, the people who tell the biggest lies in America have been the American police forces. The fact that the prisons are filled with our brothers and sisters, we have more people in prison than anybody else on the globe. And I mean, there are some brothers and sisters who might have done some things, but the fact that the only people who get chased down, searched for, and imprisoned on the word of these lying ass cops are black people. That is still going on. So the big objective that Biden says he's going to address during his presidency is trying to initiate some type of police reform. But I'm with those folks who say we really need to defund these guys and reimagine how we're going to keep order amongst the peoples in this country. But the laws and the policies of the American police forces have deteriorated to a point where these guys are just a bunch of thugs. And they're good cops here, good cops there. No, these are a bunch of thugs. And they use the cover of their badge to do a whole lot of dog shit, like in the ethnic minority communities. They did it around the Native American reservations. They did it out in California, primarily Arizona, to the native peoples who were there, the Spanish-speaking native peoples. And they definitely did it to us. So it's time for big change to come to this country. And who knows, with all of this stuff that Trump is stirring up, before we know it, we might be in the midst of the third aspect of the American Revolution. See, the first was the original one. The second one was their Civil War. And the third one, the contemporary times, we might end up with communities against communities. And there will be some bloodshed, and there will probably be some death. So we need to be prepared for it, not be naive, and really understand who we are dealing with. Understand we're dealing with people whose nature, their very nature, is different from our nature. All right. And so it's deep in the roots of these people, how mean and nasty they are. And they have the audacity to actually believe they are superior to other people. Hey, man, I'm still, where's the ancient white man's pyramid? So, where is this ancient monolithic structure that people all over the world, tourists, are going to observe today? Nothing from the ancient world. Our good brother, Dr. George G.M. James, even explained the foundation of what Europeans consider their educational system. They want to start everything from Greece and come forward as European development and civilization and philosophy. Where the philosophy that Europeans claim was Greek philosophy, the Greeks that they are talking about, many were students in African temples. They went across the Mediterranean to Egypt. Most of them. Pythagoras, Socrates. Read the bios. Read the information about them. I think Socrates was in Egypt maybe 22 years. No, that's Pythagoras who was there 22 years. But Socrates spent time there. And even if you read Doc Ben, he'll tell you that the primary temple in Upper Egypt where all of these foreign students went to learn the philosophy and mathematics, the geometry, all the sciences of ancient Egypt, right? Where they had 18 subordinate temples to the main temple in Egypt. So when they go out around the Mediterranean basin, they want to go to, Ephesus or wherever, like the different places where some of the earlier men went. Those were temples that were created by graduates of the Egyptian school. Pythagoras didn't create the idea of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. If the engineers and the workers in the Nile Valley cultures didn't know that formula, they would not have been able to build the great temples and the great monuments that still exist today. You can't build a pyramid if you don't know the simple formula of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And definitely they have a guy, who they call him, Euclid. Euclid is called the father of Proposition 47. What's Proposition 47? Here we go again. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, the exact same thing. And in his own story, Euclid happened to be a Greek who was studying the Egyptian papyri in the Alexandria library. And what he basically did was to translate from the ancient Kemetic language these formulas and wrote them down in Greek with the Greek alphabet, the Greek script. So then they want to give him the authorship or creating the information. That's how vile these people are. And the European Academy, I mean, they have all kind of people with allegedly scholars with what they call PhDs on bad information. And they defend the bad information because their status depends on them being able to continually perpetuate the lie that they're the ones, who created these concepts, both mathematical and philosophical. But all of that comes from us. Again, we were the first peoples of the earth. In fact, we had civilization and things interacting with people in other parts of the globe. And nobody even knew that there was somebody up in the northern regions of what they want to call Europe, the Western Asia. But they didn't know there were people up there, and the people that they did know was up there, they had a term they were called troglodytes or cave people. These were people who did not develop. They developed a culture because of where they lived and how they did things, but they developed no civilization. And the people that helped civilize them to bring them up from animal consciousness to real human consciousness were our ancestors. And then they want to turn around and have the audacity to want to project the false thought that they are somehow superior than other people. Hey, they can't outrun nobody. They can't outjump nobody. I mean, look, a few years out of captivity, a few years out of forced Jim Crow. Once we began to feed our children food, put them on a regular, a regular good diet, and the whole thing look who's taking over their sports programs. They thought, they found out who's the fastest, who's the biggest, who's the strongest, and what have you, We're not inferior to them. We never have been. But that's the false dichotomy that they've created in their own minds. And it's reached a point today in this country where they are ready to enter into some type of civil war to put a white racist back into the White House, though he lost the election. So I find these very troubling times mentally, but, I can't predict what's going to happen. But the signs of what I'm seeing really bothers me. So I just hope that all young people in this country, especially, will pay close attention to what's going on. For the brothers and sisters who are in other countries who will watch this broadcast or this stream, look, nothing that you've seen that's happened the last 4 years reflects what has before then been projected as really American culture and American society. I mean, the fact that the presidents or the heads of European countries would laugh at the American president out loud, like at a NATO meeting or a meeting of the G20 or whatever they did. I mean, these folks think that the American people themselves have snapped and went crazy to elect a fool and to put a fool, like in the White House. So around the world, around the globe, the lady who's the head of Germany, she can't stand Donald Trump. The boy over there in France tried to broker, and tried to broker for the European countries a relationship with Trump, and he ended up having to just shake his head. I mean, it's really white America in their ignorance and in their fear of knowing that their numbers are dwindling, that their women have a negative birth rate, that the ethnic minorities are having babies at a higher rate than they are. They had once projected it would be somewhere around 2050. Then they brought the date back to maybe around 2030. But the reality is that the ethnic minorities, the other ethnic, the people of color, are in a larger numbers than they officially let people know. And the thing in Georgia that's really, really funny, when black folk have to go stand in line 6, 7, 8, 12 hours to vote, and therefore a lot chose not to do it. All right, so our voting numbers they were artificially kept low from the 1870s all the way up through 2008 or 2008. And a lot of black people who just wouldn't go through the nonsense to vote. But once they created a method called a mail-in ballot, well, hey, you mean I can send a request for a form, you send it to my house, I can fill it out and mail it back in? More people participated than they even knew existed in all of these places. There were always more black people living in Georgia than white people. There were always more black people in Mississippi than white people. All right. Alabama, it was a close thing, but because of the captivity, that is the forced working of black people in the South with no pay, there were more captives in the South than there were white people. All right. And they went through every mechanism they could for a short period of time, Reconstruction, black folks came out right away and elected black people to represent them in the local state legislatures, and they even sent people to the Congress of the United States and one senator. But once they started oppressing and outwardly murdering and oppressing black folks to keep us away from the polls, that's the only way white folks had power in the South. They had to murder and intimidate to keep black folks from voting. Otherwise, they always would have been outvoted. So this year in Georgia, where did all these black votes come from? They must have cheated. But they created a way that black folks did not have to be intimidated from their living rooms. Hey, they go to their mailbox, get the ballot out, go back into their living rooms, fill it out, and send it back in the mail. And then not just in the South, in Pennsylvania, in Minnesota, in Wisconsin, a lot of people participated and outvoted the white races. And as a result of that, again, this guy, Joe Biden, won the presidency. Now, I'm not advocating anything. I'm a historian. I'm an Alstorian trying to give an analysis of this time period that we've gone through. Mm-hmm. Do you have any specific questions about anything that you would like for me to address?
Yes, brother Tehuti. Sir, talk about the lazy mind, because as you know, the lazy mind tends to like controversy. We see that from the YouTube community right on up to Donald Trump.
Okay. Well, the lazy mind is a result of what I call the social engineering system that most people call public education or education. In most cases, people are not getting educated. They are being socially engineered. Uh, People are told that their beliefs are more important than what they know. And so you got a bunch of people go, I believe this, I believe that, haven't done any investigation, any research or anything. So they just walk around in a funk thinking that what they believe is the most important construct by which they should live. And there's almost, how do I want to put this? You get rewarded for having a lazy mind. Today, all you have to have is a presence on one of these social media outlets doing dumb stuff. And all of a sudden, you're famous worldwide. So people aren't trying to study and learn anything in depth. I mean, here we are. What are the primary industries that we teach our young to train in order to take care of themselves? Actually, there are no industries unless you look at athletics and the entertainment industries. So if you want to entertain white people, if you want to play sports and keep white people happy, like watching you run up and down the field with the football, up and down the court with the basketball and what have you, right? They pay a lot of money to create this, what I call a distraction, so that people are all caught up in understanding every team, every play on every team. They know this and they know that. They get into betting about it. They argue about who's going to win this, that, and the other. They offer prizes. If you can guess the right teams and the right sequence, they're going to win. All of that is keeping people, what they call entertained, but distracted. And what is the distraction? In the last 9 months, the big white folks up in New York on Wall Street have made more money in that short period of time while this COVID-19 pandemic is raging than in any similar period over the last 10 years. In other words, you know the guy that'll come up to you and snap his finger, got you watching his right hand as he's talking, and with his left hand, he's sneaking it around, picking your pocket, running a game on you. Well, that's what that's what sports and entertainment is. It's a distraction to get you watching it while they are ripping you off economically, as such. Yeah, and you would think if anything, during a time when so many people are not working, so many businesses had to close, the restaurants and bars are having all of these problems, you would think that it would be a very tough time for people up on Wall Street. But do some research. Check out how much money these guys are actually making. And they're able to do that because they have socially engineered most people to be not to use their brains to really think. See, like they, so that's the lazy mind. I mean, a guy will say, hey, put a mic in front of him, and I'm going to be on a video. You're going to show this, and they say something real dumb and stupid. Just for the idea of wanting to be broadcast, to become famous, to have their face, broadcast around the globe. That's a distraction that encourages people not to be deep thinkers. Again, coming out of the 1960s, we had these professors at these schools like Jacob Carruthers out of Chicago. Again, you talked about Doc Ben, John Henry Clark, but Asa Hilliard, Ivan Van Sertima, these brothers, Sister Frances Welsing, her good buddy Neely Fuller was insisting that we think, use our minds, do deep research, get to know something, like then create industries of your own, like that will economically empower you. Get away from the idea of individualism. Back in the just as we were coming out of the '60s with SNCC and the Black Panther Party, and was empowering ourselves, somebody from somewhere went out and found a poem that people used to quote all the time. I do my thing, you do your thing. Like again, they kept pushing this thing, and it sounded as if it was something smart to say. Like, hey, people think even today, as I do my own thing. As a sister has a commercial on TV, I didn't take nothing from nobody. I got my own business. I don't need nobody for anything. That is the road to ruin. One of the first symbols that the teenage kids in 1961, 62 created was a signal with a deep message that most people missed. And that deep message was the Black Power fist, the hand up in the air, right? Then everybody goes Black Power, Black Power, Black Power. They see the closed fist. But as we were designing that, what we were talking about was the old adage. Look, like individuals, like the individual fingers on the hand, you can break and snap any finger, anybody can. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to mess a finger up on the hand as long as they're out there as individuals. But once you bring them together in unity, again, the first symbol of Kwanzaa, unity, umoja, unity is what makes progress. Individuals don't really accomplish very much in the world. They are fly-by-nights. All major progress, all movements forward has always come from people unifying for common goals, common objectives, and a common strategy for advancing them. But again, the capitalist's best weapon is convincing people that their individualism means something, that it's important. And then you see it expressed. I mean, hey, one of the things I like about, like some of the cities you go through, the last time I was in Howard, I mean, look, brothers and sisters create their own dress style. I mean, you have some real, what I would call more like Hollywood characters walking down the streets. This individual is everybody, not everybody, but people want to stand out. Therefore, they create their own identity as such by sometimes doing stuff that's absolutely outlandish or wearing something that's outlandish because they have been trained to believe that their individualism is very important. Individualism is the worst thing that's happened to Black people in this country living amongst this devil. That's the majority population. He can beat you as an individual, but as a group, or as an organized group, he can't. Organization, again, going back to my friend Kwame Ture, aka Stokely Carmichael. Organization, organize with what's coming after you, what you really have to do to protect the community, all right, is be unified as such. Organize. You can't do it very well as individuals. And then be smart enough, go back and read Ralph Ellison's book and understand that in its deepest sense. Be the invisible man. Be like the porter on the train is walking up and down the aisle. The white man, they don't, hey, just bring me a beer, bring me a drink, what have you, and keep talking about all that stuff, and the brothers just listening. As they go down by the white folks, they see him and don't see him. Like the brothers, I tell a story of doing research about the organization of Prince Hall Masons, that back in the 1770s, the white Masons, the colonist Masons were meeting in a bar in Boston, where they were planning, their strategies, like in terms of the rebellion against the British government. And a brother, who worked there, what I call, I guess, a barback. He cleaned the bar, he brought up, washed the dirty glasses and stuff, did all the menial work around the bar and what have you, right? And these guys were sitting there planning, ignoring him, thinking, not respecting his intelligence, not respecting his intellectual level, right? So the brother was listening, everything that they was plotting and planning, the brother was listening to. In fact, he was the one that went back and convinced Prince Hall and some other brothers, well, these guys, these white Masons, they're the one that's planning this revolution against the British government. And what they want afterwards, this look like something that we might want to be a part of. So the reasons the brothers organized themselves into a Masonic lodge, the African Lodge #1, by the way, is because they knew that that John Hancock, Paul Revere, and the other white Bostonians that was plotting against the King of England, and plotted what was it? The Boston Tea Party, as they called it. The Boston Tea Party was organized in that bar. I think it was called the Goose and Gridiron Tavern in Boston. They organized the Boston Tea Party. In fact, they put all the makeup on and they dressed up like Native Americans out of the Masonic meeting, and left and went down and threw the tea into the Boston Harbor as such. Excuse me. And one of the reasons, again, the black folk had a great idea of what was going on, because they had this nondescript brother who was working there, quite an intelligent brother, but like everybody else, he walked with his shoulders kind of hunched over, looking down the whole time, but bringing all the plans back to the black community. So the free blacks who were living in Boston knew what was going on as such. So when we organize, we have to be organized, but also think about stealth, being seen but unseen. See, we use strategy, organized strategy, to protect ourselves and to plan for ourselves for whatever is coming on in the future. It's like, no black person is dumb enough to, get in the open media and say, yeah, we got 25 brothers that we got, this kind of weapon, this kind of weapon, and this kind of weapon, and we're going to do this if they come to town. We're not going to advertise it out loud. They don't need to know. But we need to know that we do need to be organized. And even the brothers, the brothers who left the continent, fleeing to Europe because they thought they would have a better life in Europe, risking their lives going across the Mediterranean Sea in all kind of cranky little boats and stuff. They've gotten to Germany, they've gotten to France, Italy, and England, and found out that the white folks are not so grateful and civilized after all. Like a lot of racism is taking place in Europe against people of color also. Not so much Spanish-speaking people like we have that live here in the Americas, because, again, you don't have Hispanics going to England or going to Spain. They're staying, what we call Hispanic and just Spanish-speaking natives of the Western Hemisphere. On the East Coast, they call them Indians. When the Spanish got down and conquered Mexico and what have you, they're called Mexicans, or they're called Guatemalans, or they're called, all kind of names that they were left with that the Spanish dropped on them. As such. But they are Native Americans to the Western Hemisphere, just like the Native Americans that were indigenous to this part of the Western Hemisphere, what we call the United States now. All right. I see you have my eye just caught one of the viewers. I want to shout out to the brother who said free H. Rap Brown. Yeah, Terrence Johnson. Hey, Terrence. Hey, thank you for putting that up there. A lot of people need to know this brother was a very important soldier in the student movement that came out of the 60s, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Council, SNCC. And, because of his force of nature that he was, a very militant person as such. that kept us on pace to keep the pressure on white folks, like to stop all this Jim Crow nonsense and openly, like treating us and making us live as quote unquote second class citizens. The brother was a soldier in our liberation movement. And I don't know all the details of what happened, but I know that there's a, oh man, what is it? One of the movies that ran through this guy, what's his name? Michael Jordan, who played the lawyer to get this other actor out of jail. I think they were down in Alabama, and he finally got this brother freed of a murder charge. White folks, the police, the district attorneys, state attorneys, and what have you, they will invent evidence against you. All they want is a conviction, and they will invent evidence against you. They talk about the law as if the law was something sacred. But the law in America is situational. It only applies in terms of what a lawyer could convince a jury of what the law should be in a case of some type of dispute. As such, I mean, if the law was sacred and only meant one thing, see, you wouldn't have all of this nonsense going on in Washington, D.C., up on Capitol Hill and in the White House. See, like, it's against the law for anybody to intimidate a voter. It's against the law for anybody to ask people to overturn an election. It's against the law technically. But again, you have to go into a court, a court, and prove your case. So it depends on whether you can prove your case. In 90% of the cases when black folks were brought before the bar of justice, they would never allow a black person to be on the jury to help make the decision. So they're not free and equal across the board because they used oppressive measures to keep black folks off juries. And in most cases, oh man, hey, I just read this case the other day. There's a brother. Look this up. It'll make you sick. The brother's name was Isaac Woodard, 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 not Woodford, but Woodard. All right. This is a brother that was a war hero from World War II. He came home, got discharged from the army in Georgia. Still in uniform, he caught a bus from Georgia to go visit his relatives in South Carolina. On the way, he asked the bus driver, he needed a minute to get off the bus to go to the bathroom at the next town. The bus driver stopped, let the brother off the bus, and then called the sheriff and told the sheriff this brother, whatever, was acting up. The sheriff and his deputies drugged this brother off the bus, beat him up badly, charged him with drunken and disorderly, took him to the jailhouse, and the sheriff gouged his eyes out with his billy club. And left him there, all beat up in the cell for 3 days before they allowed him to get any medical attention. And when he was taken to the doctor, it was too late for the doctor to do anything to try to save his eyesight. That's justice for white folks, under the idea that here's a soldier coming home in his uniform with ribbons because he had done some good warlike things when he was in the war. So he's a decorated World War II veteran. That this down in this little town in South Carolina, I mean, they what they did to this brother was sickening. But so when we talk about George Floyd, we talk about Eric Gardner in New York. We saw them choke him to death. We talk about Trayvon Martin. I mean, all of these cases are but a tip of the iceberg that we are seeing today, continually, since the end of the Civil War. We don't even go about what they were doing prior to the Civil War, when they considered us officially in captivity or in their institution of slavery. But this has been a continued relationship between white males in the power structure and black men, especially in this country. They've tried to beat us. They've beat us down. They've murdered us. They've maimed us to try to keep us in our place and such, so that they could live with the illusion that they are somehow superior than somebody else. Hey, forgive me for going on and on and on about this, but again, at this time in my life, again, I just want people to know. I mean, I know that integration, assimilation, people are, coming together. They want to work together to try to build this idealistic society. But the person that we have to worry the most about, is him. The rest of us can live because that's our nature, to be human. The rest, so like we can organize together and we'll work out a great society where we can treat each other as human. But the problem is him. He's the one that's actually in his own mind is inferior and has to create a false paradigm in which he can take a non-shoe wearing outhouse using hillbilly to make him think that he is superior, than us. I mean, come on, man. I mean, what's hidden in plain sight is the physical superiority of the black athlete. What's hidden in plain sight, the most beautiful music ever produced in this country, again, comes from the harmonies out of our communities. Now they are adopting our style to create what they're calling American music, to sell their products, again, to get our attention. Now the musical backgrounds of a lot of their commercial comes out of, comes out of our culture, doesn't come out of his culture as such. And he wants to assert that he's superior to someone. Well, he never has been. The only thing that he is more superior of is his meanness, his nastiness, and the fact that he knows that in order to get anybody to think he's superior, he has to use low down, dirty bullshit to keep people oppressed underneath him, and use the hide behind the authority of the state in institutions like police forces, in order to beat us up and keep us in our place. Hotep, Brother Joy Lamb, 747. I'm just reading back some of the people that's putting greetings up on the screen. Go ahead, Baaba.
Brother Tehuti, you saw the video with the North American Indian, the Native American brother, the Haudenosaunee brother, that as they're called, the Onondaga Nation. Standing, and I heard him, and he kept teaching on, the women rule. In my nation, we go by a matriarchal society. And I said to myself in my mind, I was like, that rings kind of true. It sounds like Kemetic culture. Teach a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, there's a saying that really, it's really an ancient saying. The modern version of it, that again, I think came out of our culture. You've heard the term mama's baby, daddy's maybe. All right. We know the woman, the child whose womb the child is birthed from. That's mama's baby. We know the womb the child came out of. Until very recently, people, everybody assume good people and everything, hey, that daddy, that husband probably is the father. But in many instances, the husband wasn't always the father of the child. That's why they say daddy's maybe. Therefore, ancient peoples, in terms of developing their holy line, their sacred line, their genealogy and what have you, was matrilineal. That was natural to us as peoples around the world. Again, we know the woman. So the power, the inheritance, everything was traced through the woman. That's a matrilineal society. And I'm not surprised that our native brothers on this continent also had a very similar social structure. See, like we know the woman that the child is born from. Before other peoples knew the science of pregnancy and birth and what and what have you, it was always a question mark in some instances in terms of who the daddy was, unless you come out a spitting image of your daddy and what have you. There could always be a question mark, but that is mature. That's going all the way back to the concept of what we call in the Nile Valley, the concept of what they called Het Heru, which the Europeans called Hathor. That aspect of femininity. Het Heru means the house of Horus. All right, Het, which is the womb. That's what the symbolism was. The Het Heru, the house of Horus. The womb is where the child comes from. That's matrilineal. That's a matrilineal system of discussing genealogy. It's as simple as that. And a lot of the large family groups, I hate using the word tribes, but a lot of the large family groups that broke off and had subcultures across the continent maintain a matrilineal system as such. In some instances, of course, you had strong men who bogarted their way, through a test of strength and imposing themselves on rule as opposed to always following the matrilineal example. But in general, most ethnic peoples in the equatorial lands around the globe, through what we call South America, through Southern Asia, India, around all the way through what is today called the Cambodian Vietnam range, all the way out to the Pacific Ocean and the indigenous people of Australia. Again, the intelligent, conscious systems were matrilineal as such, and so I'm glad that my brother up there in New York, I've watched him. I have a lot of respect for the fact that his spirit still hasn't been bashed so badly that he won't stand up and tell people who he is and who they are. But the thing that he has to, one of the things he said, the European who came to this land, the one thing that, again, most of the native peoples know, he never kept his word with them. Never. There was never a treaty that these people signed that they respected. I mean, there was, look, all land from from the Appalachian Mountains going westward was supposed to remain the native people's lands forever. If they would just let them have the Tidewaters areas of Virginia and Maryland. Everything else is yours forever. That's their first agreement. Made it with Chief Powhatan of the Powhatan Indians or the Powhatan natives down in the Virginia Tidewater area. They broke that treaty early and kept moving westward. For my native brothers up in in the central part of the United States, what is now North and South Dakota, the Black Hills, that was going to be the natives' land forever. If they could just get the part down under there in what is today Indiana, Indiana moving westward, Nebraska, that whole area, Iowa, doing that area. We just want this part now, but all that up there, the Black Hills, that's your sacred land forever. Until a whitey went running up there and found a gold nugget and said, "There's gold up there in them there hills." then the treaty went right out the window. But they don't think they're going to run up there to those people, and confine them to what I call plains. The Plains Ghetto is a native reservation. All right. See, like on the East Coast, not the East Coast anymore, but the urban ghetto is where they deposited poor blacks, and not just us, not just poor blacks. If the Italians tell their real story, if the Irish tell their real story, when they emigrated here, they were considered lesser white folks than the WASPs, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Englishmen, the British people. Everybody else was below them, in terms of their immigration status. So the worst ghettos of Boston were the Irish ghettos, not the black one. The worst ghettos of New York was the Italian one, not the black one. See, like as those immigrants came over. So they confined poor people to a small geographic area. And when you confine a bunch of people in a small geographic area with very few resources, what's going to happen, you're going to find what they call crime. People want to survive and live. They want a place for their family to live indoors out of the elements. They want to be able to feed their wife and their children. So the creativity of people is going to be outside of the rules. I'm going to go get me some resources through hook or crook in order for my family to live as such. So confining people in small geographic areas, like the same thing with the native reservations, as they call them, you create conditions for crime. Then you create, because you know you're creating conditions for what they're calling crime, then you create a force to keep the people corralled up in those crime, quote unquote, ridden areas. So the police are given open license to do what they have to do to keep all those crazy poor black people confined up there in Holland, to keep them confined over there in Green Valley. That's part of their strategies and how they work with people. And they did the same thing with the natives here. The first treaties, the Iroquois, what we call the Iroquois Confederation of civilized nations of North America, had representatives at the Continental Congress when they were trying to create their constitution and what have you, because the white Americans, Ben Franklin and the boys, they wanted to know how did the natives come together and create their confederation. So they organized, the early documents were somewhat based on the Iroquois Confederation, and these were all of the native families or the tribal groups that were living up in, from New England, going all the way around to what's the Great Lakes areas up in Wisconsin and Minnesota. These folks were unified in a great confederation, and America stole a lot from them. And that's so I shout out to the brother. If he's had a chance to watch this, I know your history. I'm allied with you in your fight against them, and especially in passing the truth on to those who are around with us today, and plant the seeds of these truths into the young ones, so that you can pass the baton off to them once you become a what's called a senior citizen brother like myself. Make sure you continue to tell your story and tell it to the young. They need to hear it, because if you leave it up to Whitey, your story is going to be erased and retold from his perspective. It's like the white man he's got his own paradigm, the box out of which he sees the world from his view. That's his paradigm. And his goal has been to make you look at the world through his paradigm. That's why when he tells his story, his story is what he calls world history. It's not your story. It's not our story. That is his story. But his story has become an academic discipline. And if you follow his rules, he'll give you a pat on the head and give you a tassel to hang off of a hat and give you a degree as being a master of his story. Mm-hmm. As such. And his story has been continually changing, and the way he tells his story is 90% lies. He's never told the truth. He colors his story. For people listening, again, how many of you have ever heard the story that George Washington never told a lie? All right. But they're still telling that story to elementary school kids today. when they're trying to create a story about their first president, make him a hero. How many of you know what's called it's called the estasis of George Washington? You need to come to the United States Capitol building, look up in the dome, look up at the painting in the dome. They have George Washington sitting on a throne with angels around him. You know, like, hey, the hypothesis, in other words, they deified George Washington in the United States Capitol building. All right. The fact that George Washington had a black son, his name was George Foster. All right. You ever see, look him up, look at the pictures of him. He looked just like George himself. All right. The brother, right? But in order to clean up white history, you go down to Mount Vernon today, those white folks will kill you if you assert, but what about his black son, George Foster? Oh, they don't want to deal with that because they have to make a myth their history as opposed to the truth their history. Because hey, again, when I go back to the what I call the allegorical language of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he tried to do it in a way to really let you know what you were dealing with. See, like when he used the term calling them devils, he was talking about behavior. If you look up what in their own scriptures they call the behavior of the devil, and then look at his behavior, and you say, what people walking around here on earth exhibit the behavior that's listed in this book, the Holy Bible, that's supposed to be the devil's behavior. And you point and you say, oh, wow, your mouth will drop open. And you say, now you understand why Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, called these people devils. Why Malcolm X called them devils. See, until he made that unfortunate trip to Mecca and got his mind kind of, like, hey, he was under a lot of mental stress at that time. He had just been basically suspended from the nation. He had the CIA following him everywhere he went, and he was under a lot of stress and pressure at that time. That was, heading for his eventual assassination. So some of the things he said you can take with a grain of salt, but the rest of us, we all know when you see the behavior, you know what the behavior, you know what devilish behavior is. You can, if not, Google it. Get a book and read it. Get a dictionary and look it up and read it and find out. Then you're going to see what behavior matches that description. Yes, such. Now I know it's a bad thing to say. In fact, but running for the Senate down in Georgia right now during this runoff election, Ray Warnock. Okay, I just got some flash up on my screen saying that my it's not working right. But anyway, one of like Reverend Jeremiah Wright in Chicago, this brother, preaching down there in Atlanta, he has one of his sermons where he told his church members to stop worshiping whiteness. All right. Stop worshiping whiteness. Hey, I visited some friends of mine in Atlanta, and there's some brothers and sisters that have some real beautiful homes because of their economic status, like it down in Atlanta, in the Atlanta suburbs. But one got a little angry with me when I went in, and I said, "Dag, man," I said, "What is it? What is it about?" Like white people that you like so much that everything in your house comes out of white culture. Everything, not one black picture in the house. Everything can, hey, this English, this, like modern style or what have you. But somehow or the other, in order for some of us to be successful, the way we represent ourselves once we become successful is latching onto his stuff. Sean, look, I got this, French colonial couch. That don't impress me. Yeah, you're not French. So what's so outstanding about a French colonial couch? Why would you decorate your house with all this kind of stuff? You have to stop, like worshiping whiteness altogether. A sad thing for me, and I know I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say this in this context. When I was a young man growing up in the 50s, I was a doo-wopper. You know, like a lot of other young men across America. I was out on the corner, with a group of other young men singing, harmonizing, singing. And we formed a little group. And during that time, I was dumb enough to go get my hair processed. Because all the successful singing groups that I saw during that time, all the brothers had processes and stuff. It took the student movement and discussions about why we wanted our hair to look straight and pompadours and all that stuff looking like the white man. Because somebody had told us, and we drank it in and believed it, that our natural hair was kinky, knotty, and ugly. So we did everything we could to deface ourselves, to make ourselves look more white with processed hair. And we went through a process of self-empowerment, coming to know who we were as African people. And we went through a period where we created the style called the natural. Took all that processing out and went to the natural. All of you, I think one of the most famous symbolic portraits that time was of Angela Davis, the sister with the great, big, beautiful afro, natural hairstyle, because we were no longer going to do things to ourselves to make us look like white people, and thinking that made us look good or make us look beautiful. I mean, I was very proud of that era. I mean, hey, my natural, and we went through this process. But somehow or the other, I don't know why or what's behind it, but somehow, especially amongst our sisters, natural hair is no longer in vogue. In fact, a lot of them want to look so much like the white, like women, that one of the largest industries in the black community are these beauticians who, are selling false hair to these sisters so that they can have long flowing hair like white people. I don't understand that. I don't know the psychology of it. I don't understand it. I'm out of touch. I don't want to insult anybody. But again, being natural, being who we are, we are African people. Some of us use the term African American. African is just used kind of like as a word, but most of us concentrate on the American part, don't know very much about the African part of our identity at all. So my question is, why have we gone backwards, to styling ourselves, like we're allegedly false hair, wigs, and what have you, this long, straight hair, flowing hair like the European woman is now in vogue or in style for black women. I don't understand it. I know I'm going to get in trouble for putting this out here on video, asking that question. But I just wanted to put it in the context of going back, having grown up, personally imitating white people, thinking it made me look good, to have a processed hairstyle in order to be able to sing. And it took, again, being educated at Howard University with the likes of Stokely Carmichael and the crew, Cleveland Sellers out of South Carolina, and these brothers to teach us and bring us to the point where by the time we got through burning down Watts in Detroit by 66 and 67, by 1968, we are coming out of that, with a natural hairstyle. And that natural hairstyle was such a beautiful thing to have, and that was the symbol of our culture from the late 60s right up through the mid 70s as such. But it's just a question. But again, it's also a state of mind. And going back to this worshiping whiteness that this Reverend Warnock out of Atlanta was talking about in that lecture, that he was trying to give his people a sense of self-empowerment, and what have you. And one of the things that the it's the white girl, the opponent who owns the basketball team down there, used in the debate against him was, I mean, you don't want somebody, I mean, why are you trying to divide us? Why are you telling black people to stop worshiping whiteness? I mean, she really had the audacity to ask the question. But sometimes we have to stop. You know, we're doing all right. We're moving forward. But what are we doing? What symbols are we using? How are we projecting ourselves? You know, like, and it's important to ask the sister, because more than 50% of the time, I would say 70 to 75% of the time, you're the ones who are bringing the babies into the world and passing culture off to them. And as they're growing up, if they look at you and you think you look beautiful with this straight hair, they're going to grow up wanting that themselves as opposed to being themselves. That's the image. So, yeah, Keith, you say it's $1 billion question. Lindsay, it is, and I don't know. And for a brother who came through the movement, who was a soldier, what I call a cultural soldier in the movement all of those years, and have really given my life, you know, like, hey, to the whole idea of trying to uplift, teach, you know, and move our people forward. As I'm in my sunset years now, it's a question that I'd like to ask because I don't know the answer. Dr. Leary, I believe, one of her books that she wrote about post-traumatic slavery syndrome, that could be it. That we, you know, have gone backwards to that again. Rule intelligent forever. Thank you, ancestors. All right, again, hey, Terrence, thank you for the statement. But it's just a question that, again, I'm putting out there as I'm passing the baton off to the younger generation that's here with this new technology and have the consciousness to want to watch Baaba TV and his productions, Baaba TV Every Time Fire and his productions. This is a question I want to put out there into the community. If you hate me, send the emails or tap on Baaba TVs. Send it all to Baaba Every Time Fire. You know, because I admit that, you know, at this point, there are some things that I see the younger generation doing that I don't understand. Second question, Baaba Every Time Fire. I want to call you, I'm not going to call your name out because I don't know if your audience knows your name under that circumstance.
A lot of them do, some of them don't, but I don't care.
Okay, hey.
They know I'm Dave. They know I'm David. You know,
hey, man.
They know, a lot of them know David. Yeah.
Hey, don't y'all be confused by David's complexion. Don't let his complexion fool you. This brother, I mean, now David has a deep black soul. And don't let his complexion fool you. I mean, he's a conscious brother. He can tell you more about Malcolm and things than you would ever want to believe.
You sticking, T. Wow. Let's see here. Hopefully, me calling, he will log out and then try to log back in. Let's see here. All right, family. Brother Tehuti is logging off now, and he's going to log back in. He said, give him a minute. You know, with these live streams, sometimes they be a trip. But that's all right. We're going to work with it. I got to talk to Brother Young Pharaoh. I haven't talked with him in a while. Have him come back on Baaba TV and share some of what he's doing. Let me see here. Shout out to Jack Kim. I know you in the chat, brother. I'm trying to find one of your songs here. Where is it at? There you go.
Can you tell me? Can you tell me? Can you tell me? Can you tell me? Yeah. Tell me something. Yeah. Talk to me. Yeah. We all black. Yeah, all rebels. Put the guns down to save your ammo for revolution's birthright stolen. Now we question evolution, we don't know who we are. Days of dark nights with scars. Life is hard, nightmares make a collage. Native slaves from native New York. It's past the fourth quarter. Their possession, but we're the best scorers. Valuable players in the game that breed slayers. Our job is war, so of course it's free labor. All we see is danger. Crossbows and skulls, everything is demonically controlled. Mind by the bulk, they hit us mentally, spiritually, physically, politically. As long as air enters me and the sun gives energy, I'm arrived with offerings of peace. Lost my own beliefs to the truths and facts. The scholars teach, give respect to the deceased. Pick up where they left off and pour libations for some of the best. Can you tell me what freedom is? Can you hear my people's cry? Gotta fight just to stay alive. Can you tell me what freedom is? Why you wanna try and control my life? Can you tell me what freedom is? Can you hear my people's cry? Gotta fight just to stay alive. Can you tell me what freedom is?
All right, family. He's back. All right, hold on, Brother Tehuti.
All right, hey, man.
I was getting worried there for a minute.
Well, hey, man, I really hate to say this. When I move my computer over here to give myself a better image, I pulled the extension cord, came loose out of the wall, and so my battery died.
Oh, okay.
And it just, hey, that's all right. It's plugged in now. I had to check real quick. I thought it was I didn't think that the government could pull a trick and just kill my computer by itself.
Yeah.
All right. I'll apologize, family. Again, hey, all this new technology. I have me a new MacBook here that I'm using, and I have to be more astute to keep my eye on everything. So I'll be better at this. But forgive me. Call it the foolery of an old man, a senior citizen.
T, you loud and clear, though. You loud.
Okay.
That mic is real good on there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, the mic. Again, I'm glad that the information is flowing through and folks can hear it. Okay.
Brother Tehuti, talk about Kwanzaa. Where are you going this year?
Kwanzaa.
Aren't you invited somewhere this year?
Actually, yeah, I'll be doing my first Zoom Kwanzaa. I've been invited to be the first night spokesperson at the African Village in I think Jacksonville, Florida, for their program. They saw me on a program, and there's a brother there, part of the organization, that knew me well, and asked if I would do that. And he chose me because of part of the speech I gave tonight about unity, and really explain that umoja means more. It's a more in-depth concept than most folks actually think about. That and that's primarily I'm going to be talking about emoji, the idea of unity. Like I gave earlier tonight, when you put the Black Power fist up, again, that came from us taking that as a symbol of how we had to, back during Jim Crow, unify to beat the white oppressor as such. As individuals, as just like the fingers on the hand. In fact, part of it comes from the speech of Booker T. Washington, his 1895 speech at the Atlanta Exposition, where he explained, as an open hand, the fingers individually can be manipulated and moved about in a lot, and there's not a lot of strength in one's hand, with the fingers apart and separated like that. You can bend and manipulate, and you can break each finger individually. And it's like you can break each person individually as long as they're individuals. But when we come together in real unity, it's a symbol of unity. This is real umoja. And progress is always made by folks who come together in unity, to achieve an objective. So the first principle for success in the struggle, we're just throwing the fist in the air. It's nice to do as an emotional kind of response to a thing, but to really understand what it really stands for. And it really stands for us being unified as a people and fighting the battle against this great enemy that we have, as what have you. So when I speak of umoja, that whole presentation will be based in this context, as opposed to just being the first of 7 principles of the Ngobel Saba, and as such. So that's what that's going to be doing. Kwanzaa still is the great idea. For many, many, many years, I bought into the one of my teachers. I'm not going to name them now, but they were very disappointed in Dr. Malana Karanga behind some things that happened during the struggle. In fact, one of the things that a lot of people might not know about is that he and some other brothers had an organization out there on the West Coast. I think it was called U.S, which stood for United Slaves. And that was an organization that the government chose to infiltrate and put some of their agents in his organization. And he, didn't know that they were agents that had been sent there for the whole purpose of disrupting the struggle out there on the West Coast. And in fact, they got into a lot of intellectual battles with the Black Panthers and some other stuff out there on the West Coast. And eventually a brother got killed. And the way I came about that information left me in a position where I did not give the brother the respect for his ideas and what he was putting forward as such. Again, as I look back over time and have listened to him give an explanation of why he came up with the idea of Kwanzaa. But after being, taken, put into captivity for a very lengthy period of time, and then subsequent to that, having to live under conditions of Jim Crow, we were mentally quite some sick people. And part of the healing process that he thought would help us was, instead of celebrating Christmas, we should look at this time period and create the holiday for ourselves and make it applicable to our culture and what we were about. And he developed the idea of Kwanzaa. I think he used even some of the philosophy of Julius Nyerere, who, unlike other African leaders who came out of the Fifth Pan-African Congress, that went back and got the colonial status lifted in his country, the country of Tanganyika, it was called at the time, and the island off of the coast was called Zanzibar. So the country of Tanzania is a combination of Tanganyika and Zanzibar. But what Julius Nyerere did, he used the concept of rather than use European words to describe what he wanted the economics of his country to be, he used African terminology. And so his, I think it's, there wasn't Umoja, Ujima, his collective economics and responsibility was the economic system that he adopted. So out of this context, Karenga developed the idea of a 7-day celebration of Kwanzaa using, again, African terminology to express, to define the days and how we could incorporate it into our consciousness and create our own paradigm, our own way of thinking in terms of what we would do during this time period. And, but looking back now, like, hey, I don't have any animosity toward him. And in fact, I'll tip my hat and salute him for creating a concept, a mental concept to get us out of always following Whitey and what he wants to do or what he created and the whole thing. So I've celebrated Kwanzaa, Baaba, up on Georgia Avenue at the bookstore. We had our own Kwanzaa celebrations. We went to several, we were the top representative at several celebrations around the city every year. And so I've come to respect it. And I think very favorably about the whole idea. Again, we have to, get out of looking at the world through his eyes and concentrate on looking at the world through our own eyes. And I think it is very helpful that, and I think it's a stroke of genius today that he developed this idea of Kwanzaa. It still has unequal development across the country. In some sense, a lot of us, brother just put up there, he was raised in Kwanzaa. And hey, shout out to you, brother. But a lot of the younger generation, the conscious generation who was raised attending Kwanzaa celebrations, who went to Afrocentric schools and what have you, that came out of that period, are some of the most conscious young folk that's out here leading in this civil rebellion against these police killings and this rough society that we're living in today. So I celebrated, and I'm honored that they asked me to speak about Kwanzaa itself, and especially about the first day, Umoja, meaning unity. So that's what I'll be doing on the 26th this year. I was also called by another brother who wanted me for the same time period, and I've been pushed back to, I'm going to do the date on Nia, about purpose, and go into detail about, a real sense of purpose in terms of once a year to stop and really go into depth thinking about what is my purpose being here in the universe? What is my purpose being here in this family? What would my purpose be for the next 365 days as I work to try to uplift, like myself, my family, and my people? We have to really stop and look at these principles and really apply them to ourselves and how we're going to move forward in the universe as such. And, again, it's called an African American holiday. A good friend of mine from the continent always points out, we never heard of Kwanzaa until we came here. It's not an African holiday. I said, no, it's one that was developed out of our consciousness and our state being here. And the fact that we want to celebrate, again, with our family and friends from a context that is not European or Eurocentric. That's what Kwanzaa is. See, Christmas, hey, there are still black men who will put on a red suit and put a white beard on and walk around and play like they Santa Claus. Like they look at the world through that perspective. That's a fantasy the European created. And some of us feel comfortable in at home trying to celebrate it in that way. The idea, because the holiday period was co-opted. A lot of people don't know this, but the whole idea of a mass for Christ comes out of the Catholic Church. And so the Christ Mass is what Christmas actually is. You know, it's supposed to be a religious celebration. But back in the late 1800s, following the Civil War, capitalism decided to snatch the holiday and make it a commercial enterprise. And today, like the celebration is around what gifts one is given to somebody, how many presents they're going to get or presents they're going to give, and how much money there's. One of the TV commercials, I don't know which one of the insurance companies has a thing where this brother and his white man are decorating their house, and this guy's, spending an enormous amount of money to decorate his house with all these outside lights and stuff. But we spend a lot of money trying to make the Eurocentric mythology that comes out of their religion mean something to us. And Kwanzaa gives thinking Black people a time period to dedicate their holidays and what's important to them around ideas that come out of African thinking.
Brother Tehuti, it's almost 10 o'clock. You done gave me too much, really, of your precious time teaching our people just a walking history book. And one of the young brothers made a comment, and they're saying that, that some of the elders, they need the young people and stuff to walk, to help us move forward with something. And I agree, but you can't go forward until you go backward.
That's what Sankofa, the principle of Sankofa. Again, thinking from these African concepts. I agree with him. Look, any and everything that I can pass off to young folks, again, I'm always willing and available to do that. I love talking to young folk because when I was 17 years old when I stepped actively into the struggle as a teenager, and because of decisions that I made. When you look at my academic background, the degrees and all that stuff, I could have lived a life of comfort, what I call middle-class Black comfort. Just kept my mouth shut, get a good job amongst white people, because of my degrees and what have you, and I probably would have done okay. But, I chose, like a lot of other young Black men and women who came out during my period, to dedicate my life to the struggle of our people against this oppression in this country, and to, in any way possible, bring about unity amongst Africans wherever we are in the world. It's grounded in Garveyism, Africans at home and abroad, like whether in the Caribbean, South America, like Europe, or here in the devil's own land of what they call America. It's been an interesting life, and I've enjoyed doing it. And anything I can continue to do until I go across the veil, I will do to empower young folk to pick up the baton and move forward, because the future belongs to them. It doesn't belong to me anymore. See, the future belongs to them. And I just hope that I might have shared a tidbit, shared a tool, or something that young folk can put into their toolbox as they continue to struggle of bringing worldwide humanity up to one common level. The idea that all people are created equal as human beings is a radical idea, and but it will only come true if we work to bring that to full truth in our concrete reality. So thank you again, Baaba, for inviting me here. I've enjoyed sharing this time with you.
Yes, sir. Before you leave, I have a guest on here, and somebody and the numerous people are thanking you in the comment section, and I've thanked you, but I don't know of anybody. I thought I was something on bringing people on, and you know what I'm saying, showing respect and things like this. But this next guest that I'm going to bring on here, There he is.
Oh, hey, hey, King. Hey, man, how you doing, young man?
Hotep Pu, Baba Tehuti San Neberchur. It's just so great. It warms my heart to see your face and to hear your voice, King. And I just didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to be able to connect in a cyber personal type of way. To just thank you for all your the wealth and the treasure that you are, a treasure trove, and as Baba said, a walking, living, breathing history book of a people's history that has been actively suppressed and buried and just completely attempt after attempt to be discredited, and it just can't be done because there's brilliant minds like yourself still walking the earth, still determined and diligent and vigilantly sharing it with the youth or whoever has ears that's willing to hear, and helping it live into the future and referring people back to the source and to the essence, which I do think is something that's been kind of lost in the modern day of modern scholarship. There's not as much of a vigilant determination to connect people to the source and the reference points of the information in the way that you did in Baba's life and in my life in particular. And I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart and let you know that, I think about you anytime I ever call myself, sharing anything with people. It's your voice. That's my voice ringing out in my head, reminding me what to say, sometimes what not to say, or sometimes maybe you shouldn't have said it in that way. It's a voice of conscience. I don't have Jiminy Cricket in here. I have Baba Tehuti Sa Neberchur ringing out more time. And I just wanted to, with the current situation the way it is, I don't know the next time I'm going to be back east. I don't know the next time we're going to be able to connect. So I definitely wanted to take this opportunity to just really thank you, and thank you from this, my generation, Baba's generation, my generation, the current generations coming up, because it's people like you that will enrich the culture to the degree that it needs to be in order for us to move forward and to progress and to move higher up on the consciousness ladder. It's the sacrifice of the life and research of ones like yourself. So I just wanted to thank you personally from me for doing what you do and steadily doing what you do in 2020 and beyond, brother.
Well, thank you very much, my brother. Look, I'm so proud. Like I said earlier, I'm proud of you. Like watching you. Like again through Baba, like TV, and the fact that I had no idea that you would grow up to be such a like powerful speaker about like the things that you talk about yourself. I'm very proud of you, and I was really worried about you when those fires were running through Oregon and California. I guess what I asked, hey man, how is my young brother? I mean, like, hey, because I mean I know what you're doing, and I'm proud of you. And again, thank you very much for the compliment. I take it very seriously. But just seeing your work, and like I told Baba earlier, seeing his work, I mean, this whole presentation and how he's taking this technology and he's spreading the information and keeping conscious thought alive. I mean, the number of people he's brought on, the kind of programs that, the guests that he's interviewed, I just think it's just a great thing. And in any other world, there would be corporate sponsors lined up, and he would be getting paid.
Yes. And we want Baba to get paid to keep doing what he's done. I mean, we know he's going to do it anyway. He's never
by
a dollar, but
I understand. Well, he'll be happy up there in those strawberry fields in upstate New York, or out there getting that fresh spring water.
Yep. That's his reward.
But this is enriching, and it's important. This really is important. And again, I thank him. I thank you. I thank the what I call the worldwide audience for taking time to watch the program. And I mean, I really have a lot of respect for your generation and how you all have taken this new technology and make sure that we have a presence in it, and that we can share and keep the information flow going, because there's still work to do on this road. that we are all on in bringing about a just world. It's a lot of work to do. So thank you again. It's great seeing you, man. Hey, I mean, you look good and healthy and very prosperous. So, I mean, it's great seeing you. And I always enjoy the conversations when Baaba will call me just out of the blue and we'll start rapping. Bring it on, Baaba.
Yeah.
We have fun. We have fun. So I've been fortunate on this journey. I've met a lot of good young people, and you two brothers. I mean, hey, coming over out of Virginia up to Georgia Avenue. That was the first circumstance. Hey, I came out. I did a lecture from your house. They brought me out. Hey, I still
a few,
those kind of things. I mean, you all were conscious young men, and I've never forgotten it. And I'm heartfelt here tonight. Seeing you here, seeing this, you and your brother together. So I thank both of you for how you two have enriched my life also. It's not a one-way street. You have definitely enriched my life. And hey, man, to go back and bring up the YouTube videos, sometimes, I get a lot of things going. I have to wait till late at night when nothing else is going on, then go back, and I know I can watch the length of, because there's some lengthy presentations, and I can watch uninterrupted by phone calls or things of that nature. So thank you for what you're doing. Keep moving forward, and that's the mantra I want to give to all the young folk. We ain't through with this thing yet, and I have every confidence that there are many, many, many young conscious people who will carry the battle forward. That's our nature, and in the long run we will win.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you both. Thank you both for getting on here. I wanted to see how I could do this. First time I had two people on here, Brother Tehuti. And
okay.
So, yeah. But
Baaba, before we depart, I just wanted to do one thing, because every time I would speak with Baaba Tehuti back in the day, as it were, I always left with a Christmas list of recommended reading. Okay. And because he's just such a wealth of information and scholarship, and not just the information and scholarship and commitment and research over his life, but his lifetime of experience in the struggle is enough to make a volume of books on in and of themselves. But I always say, whenever I see a book or hear of a book that comes out, I always think of you, Baaba Tehuti, and this book in particular, when it came out just very recently, I was like, we need to get Baaba Tehuti a copy of this book because it's right up his alley. And I wanted to recommend it to you and the listeners and the viewers of Gerald Horne's new book, The Dawning of the Apocalypse.
Okay.
And it is what's it called? The Roots of Slavery, White Supremacy, Settler Colonialism, and Capitalism in the Long 16th Century by Gerald Horne.
Hey, man, I have I hate to say it this way, but I will be ordering it within 30 minutes after this presentation ends.
Wonderful. A third of it.
I will definitely order it.
A third of it is the bibliography. Like a whole third is just bibliography, and that's what makes me think this is a book for Tehuti, because he wants the research, he wants the roots, he wants the source information, he wants it to be right and exact, because he wants to have the confidence in dispelling the myths of Eurocentric history that has kept everyone just perpetually locked down mentally, psychologically, and culturally. And The Dawning of the Apocalypse, Dr. Gerald Horne. Thank you for allowing me to do that, Brother Baaba. And Baaba Tehuti Sanebacher, just so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. And like I said, I will. It'll be on the way soon. Thank you for letting me. First time I've heard about it, but I have a, what do they call it? I have Prime, so I'll have it in 2 days.
Perfect.
And shout out to DC.